Hello again. Here we are at Lesson 4, Applying the Percent Equation. This is the last video in your series on learning about decimals, fractions, and percents. Here is our percent equation. Is equals percent of. Notice that we have one thing over here on the left side of the equal sign and two things over here on the right. The equal sign is kind of like my divider for the two sides of the equation. I can rewrite this equation just like this. So this time I've got the is on the right side of the equation right here. And I have my percent of on the left side of the equation. The equal sign is still my divider between the two, and this is okay. You need to be able to adapt an equation to any situation. So the following problems, we could have the is on this side of the equal sign or on this side of the equal sign. Just remember that it's going to be that one number or one variable all by itself. All right, let's get started using the percent equation, but this time we are going to find the percent. So my question in this case is, what percent of 24 is 16.5? It's worded a little bit different than the problems from lesson 3. So we're going to set up and use my equation, but notice my equation is looking a little different. I have the percent and the of on the left side of the equal sign, and my is on the right side. But that's not a problem. We can do this. So when I take my problem and I translate it into my equation, this is what I end up with. I've got what percent. I don't know the percentage, so that's where my variable comes in. Remember that the of in math, when it's correlated with numbers, is multiplication, so it comes down to times 24. My equal sign still comes with my is, and then I've got the 16.5 all by itself because it's on the right side of the is all by itself here. So now, since my numbers are on opposite sides of the equal sign, I'm going to divide this time. So this is going to be 16.5 divided by 24, and I get the answer 6,875 ten-thousandths. But remember, I'm a percentage here. I'm solving for the percent, and I've got to look at that decimal and see where it's at. When I'm solving for a percentage and I do my division, my answer is going to have to be changed to a percent. So I'm going to move that decimal 2 spaces to the right, and that's going to give me the answer of 68.75%. Here's another equation where we're going to find the percent. What percent of 40 is 25? Once again, we're going to use the same equation. Percent times of equals is. And when I translate that with my problem, I get n times 40 equals 25. Once again, since my 40 and my 25, my two numbers in my problem are on opposite sides of that equal sign, I'm going to have to divide. When I divide these, I get 625 thousandths. Once again, though, because my answer is a decimal, that's not going to be my percent. I have to make it a percentage. So I've got to take my answer of 625 thousandths, and I'm going to move that decimal 2 spaces to the right, and that's going to give me 62.5%. So 62.5% of 40 is 25. This is another way we can use the percent equation, by finding the original number. So in this case, I have 15 is 25% of what number? I don't know the original number. So I'm going to use that equation again, is equals percent of. When I translate it, I'm going to have the 15 on the left side all by itself because it's on the left side of the is all by itself. My percentage, remember, has to be changed to a decimal, so I moved it 2 spaces to the left to make it a decimal. And then of what number? Of is the multiplication, and my variable n stands for the number that I don't know yet. Notice that the two numbers are on opposite sides of the equal sign, so once again I'm going to have to divide. But this time I'm dividing with a decimal on the outside of the house, or with my divisor. So that changes up my division just a little bit. I have to move in that decimal 2 spaces to make my 25 hundredths a whole number 25, because we just don't think in decimals like that. This doesn't change my answer. It gives me the correct dividend. So in this case, 15 divided by 25 hundredths actually becomes 1,500 divided by 25, and I get the answer of 60. So in this case, I've got to remember to bring that decimal up, and in this case I'm a whole number 60 because the decimal is behind the last digit of the number, and n equals 60. So 15 is 25% of 60. Once again, let's do a problem finding the original number. So this time I'm looking at 8 is 40% of what number? Remember, every single time, have you noticed I put that equation down before I do anything else? I should see the same thing when you're doing your work on the assignment. I'm going to put my numbers in the problem. So my 8 comes straight down. My equal sign is down from my is. My percentage is changed to a decimal because I moved it 2 spaces to the left, so I end up with 4/10 in this case. And then my of and my variable come straight down because I don't know what number I am. My numbers are on opposite side of the equal sign, so I'm going to divide once again, and I'll be dividing by a decimal. So I've got to remember that I'm going to move that decimal over before I divide, so that my divisor is a whole number. So this makes it a 4 into 80. Well, it goes in 20 times. So my decimal is at the very end of my problem because I want to move it up after I move it with my decimal that I'm dividing by. I get that n equals 20. So 8 is 40% of 20. We've done about 4 problems so far, so let's try some application word problems. Okay, so here's my first application problem. A portable DVD player costs $225 before tax at an appliance warehouse. What is the sales tax rate if the tax is $18? So notice in my problem there is no percentage. My percentage would be my sales tax rate. So I would rewrite this as the equation, what percent of 225 is 18? This is where you have to stop and think about the numbers in your problem. Number one, always look for a percentage. If there's no percentage, you have to decide what is going to be your of number and what is going to be your is number. Remember, my of number is always the total cost or the total amount of everything. It would be my 100%. Whereas in this case, the $18 is how much the tax is. So it's just a part of the original cost. And that's how you would think about and decide where your numbers would go in your equation. So I'm going to go ahead and write this using my equation. Put my numbers in here. And what do you think we're going to do here? Are we going to multiply or divide? Hopefully you said divide because my two numbers are on opposite sides of that equal sign. So I'm going to divide 18 by 25. Don't forget that we've got to work it all out, put my decimal in, and my answer is 8/100ths. Let's stop and think. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a percentage. So is my answer, does it look like a percent? No, it's not. It's a decimal. When I do the division, I do not get my percentage. I have to go ahead and move that decimal 2 spaces to the right to get my percentage. So in this case, my sales tax rate is 8%. Here's another application problem. Susan received $17.80 off of a pair of jeans at the mall. The jeans were discounted at 20% off. What was the original cost of the jeans? So when we're working out a word problem and we know we're going to be working with percentages, that's the first thing I want you to look for. Is there a percent in my problem? And in this case, there is. Right here, 20%. Next, I have to look at my other number. My other number is $17.80. I need to think about that number. What is it going to be? Is it part or is it a whole? Well, let's read my problem again and think about this. It says that Susan received $17.80 off of a pair of jeans at the mall. The jeans were discounted at 20%. What was the original cost of the jeans? Remember that my of in my equation is equals percent of is always going to be that original cost or that total number that you started out with. So when I go to write my problem, it's $17.80 is 20% of what number? I don't know my original number. So my equation is equals percent of. And I have that 17.80 equals 2 or 20/100ths times n. Once again, what operation do you think we're going to use? Division, because they're on opposite sides of the equal sign. So here's my division. I've got to remember I am dealing with a decimal here. So I'm dividing by a decimal. So I have to move that decimal over, and then I'm going to bring it up into my answer before I even do any of the division. In this case, I've got that 1780 divided by 2/10 is 89. So I get that my answer is 89. Going back to my problem, I wanted to find out the original cost of the jeans. So the original cost of my jeans would be $89. Here are a few things to remember when doing percent problems. Always remember that you can't work with a percent. You can't multiply or divide with that percent sign. So you're always going to change it to a decimal first by moving 2 spaces to the left. Place value is important when dividing, especially since you're going to be dealing with decimals and percentages. You've got to make sure it's in the right spot to give you the correct answer. It's also important when you're converting equivalent numbers such as decimals, fractions, and percentages. The percent equation is versatile. It can work 2 different ways. It can actually 3 different ways. It can work as is equals percent of, or percent of equals is. And you're solving for any 3 of those possible numbers: the of, the is, or the percentage. And that's where the last thing to remember is very important. You have to read those word problems carefully and know exactly what you're looking for so that you can set up your equation in the correct manner. Always look for a percentage first. That's the easiest one to look for. If it's the of number Remember, that's your original number, your whole number, the one you start off with, the total cost of an item, the total amount of people in the school. Whatever the problem may be, it's going to be that total amount, or the 100% of something. The is your part. It's only going to be a part of that original number. So it's going to be the sales tax, the discount, a tip, any of those items. It's just going to be a part of the people that did something in the problem. Now, if you have any questions when you start the assignment, be sure you can come back to any of the videos in this training to get help on anything you're having trouble with. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the training.